Howdy folks, Dave here at Thunder Mesa Studio, where this week we're in the home stretch of the ON30 San Lorenzo mini layout. There's just a few small projects I want to finish up before the end of this month, and today we're actually going to be building a little Adobe depot for the layout. I want to thank you all for joining me today, and if you've been following along with this project, you know that this is a small tribute to my late friend Verne Niner and his wonderful Estrella Sonora Grande ON30 layout, using some of the structures and figures and other details from his award-winning San Lorenzo diorama. Now we've got a lot to cover today, so without any further ado, let's jump right into building this depot. This is the spot that I've set aside for this little Adobe depot, and it's only about 6 inches long by about 3 inches deep. Not a lot of space, but I think we can build something with some charm and some Southwestern character that'll fit right in here. The plan for this little freelanced Adobe station is basically it's going to be in two parts. One side will be the little Adobe shack, basically, and on to the right of that will be a covered waiting area with a platform. And for the Adobe sections, I'm going to be building those out of this pink polystyrene foam. This is a technique I've been wanting to try. This is what Gary Beatty over at the Puerto Borracho Railroad uses for all of his wonderful Mexican structures, and we're going to give it a shot for this project. I should be able to cut all of my walls out of this little 8x8 blank. Well, that's all I really need to get started, just some basic shapes. And I'm going to take this to my little bandsaw now and cut these out. Now, 1 inch thick, these blocks are way too thick for my Adobe walls. I want them to be about half of that. So we'll get walls that are about, nominally 2 feet thick in O scale. So I need to cut this right down the middle. Okay, that's a pretty good start. Now I want to put a little curve at the top of this wall. Just like that. Now with that curve, I can make some marks. I can draw out the shapes of the rest of these walls. We'll get that classic step down wall profile that you see on a lot of old Adobe buildings. All right, now I can cut these shapes out. And then we've got our 4 basic walls. Oh, not a lot of room in there. About the size of an outhouse. Now I've got some laser cut parts for doors and windows. And these are mostly just left over from other projects. I'm going to use these to mark where I need to cut out. Now for the covered platform, I'm going to be using parts that I designed for the Big Thunder flag stop. Some of you may remember when I built that. Okay, now I just need to cut these out. That's pretty easy to do with a sharp hobby knife. Just got to make sure you're keeping that blade as perpendicular as possible. Before I forget, I want to add some wooden lintels, or make allowance for them here above all of the doors and windows. I've got some 4x6 material. I'm just distressing it, and I'm going to stain it. Got some classic gray. And some early American. Now I can cut all those to length. All right. I can just kind of press that in. That shows me where I need to carve that out just a little bit. It should fit back in flush with the wall like that. And now I can start putting all this together. I'm going to use some of this Tight Bond Quick and Thick multi-surface glue. I like this stuff because it grabs and holds quickly. Just got to make sure all the corners line up close as I can get them. I'm going to put some pins in here to hold it all until it dries. I've also cut a piece for the foundation. Raise it up a little higher. Now I can set this aside, let that glue dry for a little bit, and we can start assembling the other pieces. First, the doors and windows. And those are the usual layered construction that we have with laser cut parts. That goes on top of that. And we get a nice little panel door. I also want to frame these doors with some door jambs. So I've got some O-scale 2x6 here. Now I'm trimming the windows out with some 4x4. Make them a little bit more dimensional. And as I mentioned, these are the same pieces I used for the Big Thunder flag stop. But I'm going to be doing some modifications on here. First modification is I need to cut these side beams under the platform a little bit shorter. And that's just because it's going to be flush up against this wall. Most of these pieces are cut out of some 1/16 of an inch thick MDF. And then for these upright posts, I have these veneers, which are cut out of some 35 1/1000th of an inch thick laser board. And what those do is it widens these posts out to scale 6x6. And then you have these little brackets that look like they're inset. Now these posts just fit down into these holes. And I need to basically cut this top beam off right there. So that can come up flush with the structure. And then I need to trim down these roof panels as well. Now I'm doing some assembly on the roof. I just got done gluing these laser cut rafters to these roof panels. These have scribed lines on them. Now I need to put this top beam in. Get some yellow glue down in each one of these notches. Should be able to just pop this in here. Not bad. Just clamp that with my thumbs for a minute or two. And then the last pieces for now, at least till I get some paint on this, are these side braces, which are going to help to align this on top of these posts. They've got a little decorative fillet at the end. All right, now I'm going to spray all of these pieces with some Rust-Oleum dark brown camo. Now I want to do some sanding on this. Take my sanding block and start rounding off these corners a little bit, smoothing out these transitions between the pieces. All right, the sanding pretty much done. Now I want to add some Adobe brick detail. And that's pretty easy to do. Just take my straight edge. I'm going to measure up 3/16, 3/16, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Don't have to do the whole wall, just the parts that you want to show. I'm using a hard lead pencil. See, I've already done some on this side over here. Making some horizontal lines. Then we just start putting in the vertical lines like that. I'll bring this around the corner into the doorway. And bring this around this corner. I'm going to take my hobby knife, go in, and especially on the vertical lines, they tend to get a little pilly with this kind of foam. You know what I mean? You get little pills in there. You want a little bit cleaner line than that. But the most important thing is to carve some of them out so they're like recessed back in there. Especially on the corners here, you want to have a little bit of change in the relief. There we go. You're starting to get it now. See that? Yeah, much better that looks with that brick set back in there. You can add some cracks here and there. The Vegas are those wooden poles you see sticking out of the side that support the roof. We've got some 1/4 inch dowel here. Not room for much more than 3 on each side. Okay. I use my hobby knife to add some axe marks to one of the ends. And I'll get some stain on those using my shoe dye and rubbing alcohol mixture. I like to use acrylic modeling paste for this. I'll put a link to it in the video description down below if you'd like to try this yourself. And I'm just going to go over most of the wall surface, and you notice I'm stippling it on. I'm not brushing it on because I want to create a texture. And this is going to fill any remaining gaps between the pieces of foam. And try not to fill in those holes I just put in there for the Vegas. And if you don't stick your finger in it at least once, you're not doing it right. Just leaving areas where the Adobe bricks, where the plaster is, broken off and left the bare Adobe showing. Well, let that modeling paste dry thoroughly. And I'm just taking my sanding block and knocking it back a little bit, taking off the higher points of the texture. Makes it look a lot more natural. So you can see how that texture looks after the sanding. Now I want my colors to pretty closely match what Verne used on the original San Lorenzo structure. So we've got sort of a light tan for the Adobe bricks and almost a pure white for the plaster. I'm going to use some of this apple barrel light mocha for that light tan color. Just applying it with a soft brush here. All right, let that dry for a second. Now I've got some titanium white artist acrylics, and I'm going to mix in just a little bit of this unbleached titanium just to warm it up a little bit. I prefer tube colors for something like this because I want it to go on pretty thick. The thing about painting something pure white is that it really doesn't leave you any place to go as far as the weathering or anything. It's, any highlights. You can't go any brighter than pure white. Got to remember to paint inside the doorway and the window openings also, because the doors and windows are going to be set back in there. Just leave that alone to dry for a minute or two. While I wait, I can finish up these doors and windows. I'll do a little dry brushing on here with some granite gray and some of that light mocha mixed together, about half and half. That'll help bring out the detail and age the wood a little bit. And I'll go ahead and hit these other parts too while I'm at it. Got some clear acrylic here. but I want to fog the windows. So I've got some of that Avery label material. Put that over the top, burnish it down. I can cut my windows out of that. Now I can apply a little Zap canopy glue to the back of the window frames and glue that onto the glazing with the shiny side pointed out. So we get a nice fogged window like that. Now I do the same thing for the doors. Just want to finish up detailing these doors and windows before I install them. This door I decided to have the window boarded up like it got broken. Now I'm adding doorknobs. Got some little Pico track nails, which make great doorknobs. They're a little smaller than Atlas track nails, so they look more scale. And a number 70 bit and my twist drill. Got that in there. And we'll put some CA on the back. That's what that looks like. And I want to add some blinds to the windows, and I found I really like this this file folder paper for that. And again, I'll glue that on a little bit of this Zap canopy glue because I'm gluing it to the clear acrylic. Now that the paint is dry on this, now I want to go over the whole thing with a dark wash. And this is just a very heavily diluted black with some burnt umber mixed in to warm it up. Mostly I want to hit these Adobe bricks, get back into the texture there, the nooks and crannies. It's going to go on really dark, as you can see, but this will lighten up quite a bit as it dries. And all those cracks I carved in, things like that, those are going to show up now. You see how it sinks back in and defines those Adobe bricks. Okay, we'll let that dry for a few. Now I can go back and just dry brush on some white. Remember when I said if you paint something, full white at the beginning, it doesn't really leave you any place to go. Well, this is what I meant. Now I can come back and use the white dry brushing to bring out highlights, things like that, because I have a darker tone to contrast it against. Okay, I think we can install the doors and windows now and finish putting this whole thing together. Now, these are going to be a tight fit, and that's by design. Nice thing about this foam, though, is you can actually just kind of press it back and give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. Keep that door in there. I want those back in there recessed about a scale foot. And then I can glue the lintel into the opening up above it. Also a very snug fit. Just using a little Eileen's tacky glue up there where these lintels go. Now I can put the Vegas in. Just a dab of Eileen's on the end of each one. Right into the hole like that. And now at last I can put the two halves of this together by gluing the platform to the side of the building. It goes right there. Clamp that with our fingers for a minute or two. And now I can plank the deck here with some coffee stir sticks. I'm about ready to put the roof on over the platform, but before I do, I want to show you something. This is a little awning that I made out of just basically pieces from my scrap box, leftover bits from other builds, and that's going to go over this window here, kind of like that. So in a coat of dark brown paint on this, and then I can start attaching all of this to the building. Okay, we'll put little eyelines right there, there, and on the ends of these brackets. And then we'll put some on this side of the roof where it meets the wall. And that should just slip right in there underneath those Vegas. Just like that. And this is a little bench that I've had for years floating around in my scrap box. There are several of these on the Thunder Mesa layout. I think I got a big box of them off of eBay at one point. Put that right here under the awning on the platform, right about there, up against the wall. And I'll be adding some more details to this platform later on. Before I get too much further, I need to put a hole in here. Put it back in this back corner for the light that's going to be inside. Well, there we go. Now I can put this on the layout and mark and drill a hole down through the layout deck for the light to come through. Now I want to install some beams here to support the structure roof. These are some scale 6x8s. These will not only support the roof, but they'll also prevent any light leaks around the edges of it. Just having that slant down so it meets the back wall. Now I've cut a little roof panel out of some scrap cardboard. I'm going to go ahead and glue that into place. And I can glue the awning on right above the window. Okay. For the roofing itself, I'm going to be using these plastic Spanish tile sheets from JTT Scenery Products. I just need to cut the pieces that I need to size and then get some paint on it. This stuff is super easy to cut, and I found you can really improve the look of it by going along the edge and kind of cutting these back a little bit, make them look more like individual tiles. And some of you might be asking, why paint them? I mean, it's already, they're already terracotta colored. Well, yeah, they're molded with terracotta colored plastic, but it's plastic, and unless it's painted, plastic always looks like plastic. It's got that shine to it, you see. So we want to fix that. I'm going to start with some Rust-Oleum dark red primer. Now I can come back and pick out some individual ties with some different acrylic colors. I've got some burnt umber, some chocolate bar, territorial beige. Mix them together in different proportions, get some variety. The idea, of course, here is that, not all of these tiles came from the same batch. And the final painting step is do a little dry brushing. Take some of that lighter tan color, mix it with a little bit of the red. And then I'm going to come up from the bottom to highlight the bottom edge of the tiles. Now I can go ahead and glue all these into place by brushing some Eileens on the back and sliding them right in there. A lot quicker than shingles, I'll tell you that. And finally, that front awning. Now I've got a depot sign that I designed in Affinity Photo and then printed out on my home printer. Affinity Photo is very much like Photoshop. This is going to go right up here on top of the covered platform. And this is two-sided, and I designed it so it can just fold over, just score it right down the middle here. Paint some white glue in here. Fold that over. And then I've got these very delicate laser cut frames for the sign, and this is from the parts for the Flagstop Depot. This is going to give it a nice finished look. Gonna do one on each side. And I just need to paint the edges of the paper a little bit of dark brown. Now I can just glue this in place right on the top of the roof. And what the sign says when you look closely is ENSG, San Lorenzo, elevation 3,209 feet. To finish up the roof, I'm just gluing on a couple of tiles here at the end that I cut from a strip, just to form a little cap there. And this is a styrene smoke jack from Tichy Trains, and I've painted it flat black. Now I'm drilling a hole through here so I can put a pin in there and mount it to this back wall. Put some cyanoacrylate in that hole, and then just push one of these straight pins in there. And then I can trim the ball off the end, just like that. And before I attach this to the wall, I want to do some weathering on it with my pan pastels, primarily rust colors. And you can see by just fading those pastels out up towards the top and leaving that flat black, it makes it look like it's all city up there. Now I know that there's really not enough room in here for a stove, but for the sake of the model, we're going to pretend that there is. Put that right about here. Push that pin in and bring it up flush with the wall. And I'll just take some of that rust and streak it right down the side here. Also using my pan pastels to add a bit more weathering to the tile roof. Going in with some terracotta colors there. Adding some streaks, dust, grime. This is next to the railroad tracks after all. Now I'll get some clear matte finish over the whole thing to lock all that into place. I want to light the structure, just like I did all the rest of the structures in San Lorenzo, with LED. And this is a 3mm yellow LED. I like to buy these with the resistor already soldered on. You can see it there under the the heat shrink tubing. If you get just bare LEDs, you do need to add a resistor to them. I like a 510 ohm resistor to use with 9 to 12 volts DC. Seems to work just great, but this one is already ready to go. Well, it's almost ready to go. I want to mount this inside a short length of straw. This will stick up from the base, and the structure will sit right down on top of it. I can just thicken this out a little bit with some black gaff tape, and then just wedge that down inside there. Just like that. I've gone ahead and drilled a hole here down through the layout deck, and I've marked where the depot is going to fit. As you can see, I had to carve a little bit of the scenery away, but not much. And I've soldered some extra long leads onto that LED. I just need to feed them down through. I'm going to use a little bit of Eileen's tacky glue to hold this in place. Now I've run the wiring up through the benchwork and over here to the 9-volt DC bus, which I described in an earlier installment in this series. And the positive lead, the red one, goes in on this side, and the negative goes in on this side. That's really important to remember and keep straight when dealing with LEDs, because if you reverse that, they won't work. Now we'll flip the main power switch and let there be light. And now the structure should fit right down on top of that, just like that. Oh, I love it when a plan comes together. Now I want to bring this scene to life with a few well-placed details. This is a horse trough that I scratch built a while back. It used to be over by the Thunder Mesa depot. I think it'll look pretty good right there. And I've got a hand pump. That's from Berkshire Valley Models. It's a white metal casting. Put that right there. And then I've got these card players. These guys used to be over in Hanging Rock. But I think it'd be funny to put them on the platform right here to show just how much of a sleepy little railroad this is. Then we've got a barrel with the cards on top being used as a table. And this other fella, who obviously doesn't know he's being cheated, as this guy reaches for a card out of his boot. But of course the dog has caught him cheating, which is always a good gag. And I just wanted to add this little porch over on this side just to sort of visually explain that this side door just doesn't just open onto the abyss. Finally, I think I'll put one of Verne's tumbleweeds over on this side. Yeah, that works. Well, that was a lot of fun. Thank you all so much for joining me today for this build. I hope you enjoyed it too. And you know, there's still more to come on the San Lorenzo mini layout, so I hope you're subscribed with those notifications turned on. Until the next video, you can also follow along for free over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/ThunderMesa, or on Instagram @thunder.mesa. And you can check out the resources available on the Thunder Mesa Studio website at thundermesa.studio. As usual, a huge thank you to our Patreon members who help to make these projects and these videos possible. Until next time, keep moving forward, everybody. Adios for now.